In this video, we're going to take a look at how you will reference standards when making definitions this year with the new changes in the TIES gradebook. A couple of things. First of all, let's look at the basics of the changes. Every definition, assignment, test, whatnot, does not need to be linked to a standard. So this linking is optional. Also, definitions can have more than one standard linked. So you can check multiple standards if that assignment hits more than one standard. The standard scores will always be out of the total score for the definition. So if a test was worth 20 points and the standard was on that test, the standard score will also be out of 20 points. And that's going to be essential. That's kind of one of the limitations of this program, and we'll talk about that when we look at some of the screens. And lastly, standard scores will automatically be scored the same as the definition, but can be changed. So when you enter a score for a definition, the good news is it automatically enters that same score for any standards that it's linked to, but you can always go in and adjust that if you would like to. So in your gradebook, if you're adding a new definition, you have the option of linking it to as many standards as you'd like. So we're just going to show here linking it to one standard and what that looks like when you actually enter the grade. So we're just going to link it to one standard, save it, and then we'll look at what that looks like when you go to enter the grade. So under the concept check number 2, hopefully you're noticing this other standards column that's over on the far right here. And when I enter a score for Andrew, the first student there, it automatically enters it for the standards when I move on to the next cell. So just like you've always done, you can quickly enter scores going straight down the list, and it will automatically enter the standard score. And this can be really good for if you want to collaborate on certain data and you want to look at those standards and it was just a small assignment that was based on one concept, one standard. You can do that because it'll automatically quickly link it, but it'll also give it a score in the gradebook. So there they are entered, and again, you can change the standard scores if you'd like by simply clicking in those boxes and changing those scores. Another nice option is you can actually go in straight to the standards only and enter and adjust just the standards score. So that might be an option that would be useful to you to be more standards referenced in your grading. Let's take a look at adding a definition that's linked to multiple standards. You can add as many standards as you want, so I'm just going to check a couple here. But the limitation here is, again, it will all be out of that 25 points. So this test was out of 25 points, maybe it was 5 questions, 5 points each. All 4 of those questions, all 4 of those standards will also be out of 25 points, and you'll see that when we get to the report. So again, when I go to enter those scores, and I enter a score of 22 for Andrew, it'll automatically enter a score of 22 for all 4 of those standards. And that can be good and bad, depending on what it is you're exactly trying to do. Maybe they only got 20 out of 25 or 100% on standard 2 or whatnot, and maybe those scores are different. Or maybe the 25 points was split between those 4 problems, and you want to show how many he got out of each. Well, each of those standards is still out of 25, so this is not a good strategy, and it will not work and allow you to do that at this time. And that is feedback we have given to TIES to improve the system, because we know that's probably what most teachers would want if their standards reference grading. Now let's take a look at some reports that you can run with this new standards-based grading. So there are 2 new report options that are going to show up in TIES here. One is class status by standard, the other is standards group. Let's take a look at class status by standard first. This report will let us look at individual reports for students and group the definitions based on the standard that you linked them to. So for this first student here, we see the first standard and the definitions that we linked to that first standard. And what's nice is you can get an overall percentage for that standard in each of your 2 categories and an overall percentage altogether there at the bottom. And that could be a really interesting report to talk to students about what they know and can do. But don't forget that one summative that we split between multiple standards, it's showing split between those multiple standards. So you want to keep that in mind when you enter a definition that's linked to multiple standards. Hopefully this report will come in handy when you're talking to students at conferences about what they know and can do and things that they can learn to better improve their grades in your classroom. Now report number 2, I want you to notice before we get into report number 2, I created a definition here called the study guide that is not linked to a standards, and what we'll see is it does not show up on these reports here. So now we're going to go and we're going to look at standards group, and this is going to group all the same standard items together for the students. This is going to be now a class report. And so notice it'll show me the average for each of the standards for all the students, but it does not show definitions that are not linked to standards. But again, it would allow me to, again, differentiate or just see how different students are doing on different standards in your class. So that is report number 2. Hopefully you found this information on how to reference standards in the gradebook a helpful tool to support student learning during the school year. If you have any questions, check with your school trainers during workshop week. Thanks for watching.